Women Taking the Lead, episode 43.
I always thought of myself that I would be like such a good leader, but because I'm bossy and smart. But like the truth is, like I really like it better when people collaborate and work as a team.
Hello, my name is Jody Flynn and welcome to Women Taking the Lead, where we are all about creating blasts of inspiration to help you overcome self-doubt so you can lead with confidence, integrity, and a sense of humor. This episode is sponsored by Luma Coaching. Want some support to get your dreams off the ground? Go to womentakingthelead.com/coaching to sign up for a consultation with me. Now, your future awaits, so let's get started. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'm here with Jess Kupferman, who is the founder and host of Lady Business Radio and the Moneycast. She's been an entrepreneur since 2005 when she started her own graphic design firm. She then went on to conquer web and then social media and decided to branch out yet again and help clients put their business models online, get paid online, create online products, etc. After almost 10 years of working for herself, she's picked up a few lifestyle tips along the way too. Her brand is twofold. She gabs about the culture and lifestyle of being a woman entrepreneur on Lady Business Radio with today's top lady business owners. She also helps business owners become as juicy as celebrity tabloids with banging branding strategies. And Jess came into my world when she and another podcaster, Elsie Escobar, started She Podcast. And if you haven't heard that yet, you need to check it out. So Jess, that's a little intro for everyone. So tell us more about you and your own humble beginnings.
Thank you. Yes, pretty much. I started my own business in 2005 as a graphic designer. A lot of times my clients were asking me, do you do websites? So I thought I probably should, since I'm being asked that constantly. And then I learned how to do web. And then in 2008, when Facebook came around, I started using it like crazy. It was a great way to get business. I've never had to advertise just from social media use. And then, of course, people started asking me, can you teach me how to, use Facebook for business? So I switched to that. And it seems like a lot of my business has been me sort of answering, the things that people ask me to do. I sort of switch, not necessarily my gear, but I find that if one person's asking, many people want to know, and it ends up being relatively lucrative. So I also like being the first to, experiment, piddle with things, and then come back to clients and be like, well, I found this to be successful or that to be successful. The She Podcast thing happened just because I was at New Media Expo in 2014, and I just felt like when I was asking questions of male podcasters, for some reason, I felt like their answers were glib or not relevant. And when I was hanging out with my women podcaster friends, I don't know, I just felt so much more understood and that their support was more valuable. So I came back and started this tiny little group. It was like 6. I just wanted it to be like me and the 6 women podcasters I knew. And Elsie is one of those people, but she knows everyone. So I turn around like one day later, there's like 50 people in there and then 100 people in there. And it just kind of grew from there. It's been really great.
Oh, that is awesome. Yeah. And I'm so grateful that the two of you met, because as I was sharing with you before we started recording, like I'm such a fan of that podcast because the conversations are so real. Right? There's no ego or super identity involved. You guys are just having real conversations and just giving your real thoughts about how things land for you and your perception of things. And I think sometimes that can be the difference between a conversation amongst women and men and men will admit this openly, like they need to figure out like ranking order.
Yeah.
So they tend to they tend to talk a lot about credentials and what they have going on and what they're creating in the world. And women don't tend to do that so much. That can be a plus and a minus, but that tends to be a difference between men and women. So I totally get that. And Jess, you've clearly had success in your life and you've definitely gained confidence, but I want to hear about a time when you were playing small, like you undervalued yourself. You didn't realize what you were fully capable of, and you may not have been aware of it at the time. It might have only been in retrospect that you thought, oh my gosh, I can't believe that I ever thought that. Share with us the story and the lessons you've learned from that.
Well, When I first started my business, I mean, just so you know, like between 2005 and 2015, I've rebranded my business like 6 times. And I mean, on the surface, it seems like what I mentioned earlier, which is like, oh, I keep changing focus and, I've changed my name and my branding. But part of it is also that like, I realized at one point, it was probably like 2 years ago, that I would get to a point where I was about to hit big and then I would change my tune. And it was almost like I was sabotaging myself. And so I had to really start to think like, am I doing that? And I have attention deficit. And I don't know, it just occurred to me that I was afraid a little bit of success, that if I got busy or if I got bombarded, that I would disappoint people, that I would not be able to deliver, that I would be disorganized, that I couldn't handle it. And so I think I was subconscious. I didn't realize it at the time. At the time, I was just like, oh, this will be cute. This will be fun. But at the time, I was, but then later I was just like, why? What is wrong with me? Why can't I just stick with one thing when I know it's going to be good? Stop switching. And so I have to force myself. I mean, I really do have to force myself. I mean, you can see just because I have Lady Business Radio and then I started She Podcast and now I'm doing the Moneycast. And I still have ideas for like 3 other shows in my head. It's only partially like, oh, what if they get big? That's not really the case now. Now it's just a matter of like, I want them all to be big and popular and successful. And I don't have time to do all the things I would like to do. That's different.
I love that you shared that because it's true that's out there, but I don't think we talk about it enough. The fear of success. Yeah. Like, what will my life become? Like, we all want fame and glory, right?
I do.
We dream. Yeah. I think everybody dreams of like having their moment, right? When they stand out and they're appreciated and adored. Some of us want it more than others, right? So you and I probably fall in that category.
I hope so. Yeah. Yeah. I do.
Yeah, I definitely do. But there's also this feeling of like, what price will I have to pay? We hear all the like horror stories of like getting so busy and your priorities getting out of whack and losing touch with your roots. And I think sometimes that stops us from fully going for it. Mm-hmm. But I love that you said like that's not the case now. Even though you have a lot of ideas, you still are, sticking with projects to take them to that place of like feeling that they are fully successful and have reached their potential. What have you put in place to make sure you are not sabotaging yourself?
That's an interesting question. There was a lot of stuff that I had in place last year and I was working and I got pregnant and I was working so hard to make sure that like things didn't crumble and fall apart. But I was having an issue with blood pressure. And so the more stuff I was trying to push to get done, it was like my body was like, nope, you're not going to get this done. Nope, we're not going to get this done. Nope, that's not happening either. And so I had to sort of let that go. Like I do try and outsource as much as I can and as much as I can afford. But that number was much higher before I had the baby because there was a good 2 months before I had the baby where I really couldn't work without, and it's not even the bad kind of, it's not stress, but like talking to you, I'm very animated and I'm excited. That's not good for me either when you have high blood pressure and you're pregnant. So I was trying to just stay as chill as humanly possible. So because of that, some stuff went by the wayside. Then I had the baby and I really couldn't work successfully until he was like 4 months old. So that's like a good 6 months of zilch. Yeah. And so the amount of stuff I can outsource now is much different than what I could outsource 6 months ago when I had a steady income. So I'd like to say that I put tons of stuff in place so I don't, I feel like I'm at the moment building that up again. Right now it's passive income and a system and a rhythm. Because when you have a rhythm and a dedication to a schedule, I think that's the key to not falling by the wayside or, it's sort of like, your listeners depend on you on Tuesdays. If you don't have it out on Tuesday, you're just a jerk. So you work towards that. And so that's what I'm trying to reestablish with, She Podcast, Elsie does a lot of the, we tape on Wednesdays and then she does a lot of the back end stuff. And then we do pay someone to do a little more of the back end stuff. And so I don't have to worry about that part. It's my own shows, like Lady Business Radio has sort of gone by the wayside. And I'm not sure I want to pick it back up. And then I wanted to really start talking about money and podcasting, and that hasn't found its rhythm yet. So I'm sort of in kind of a big transition. Also because I really just started to get a rhythm. He's 8 months, like 3 months ago. And then I did a launch. And so I don't know, like I'm not sure that I'm not sure I'm answering your question very well, because I don't know that I'm successfully doing it at this moment.
Well, you know what I'm hearing in your answer, Jess, too, is you're great when there's accountability, right? When it's public, it's visible, and with She Podcast, your partnership with Elsie kind of keeps you engaged and moving forward because Elsie's relying on you to do your part. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. And stay focused and do it. Like you said, you're like, when it's my own projects, then it's harder.
Well, I mean, with Lady Business Radio, one of the reasons I could stick with it really well is because I felt an obligation to the guest. Like, they gave me their time, and I don't want to take advantage of that by not publicizing it correctly or by not giving it my all to market it. So I marketed the heck out of it as much as I could. The Moneycast just hasn't found its rhythm with that yet. I just got off the phone for my first interview, and it has 3 episodes. So I'm getting there with that. And then with She Podcast, my part of it is to do the passive income part. And so in the background, I redesigned the website. I'm putting up a directory. I'm trying to figure out, freebies and stuff people can download for ebooks for like 10, 20 bucks a pop, that kind of thing. That's my thing, is setting up ways to make money that will go on and on and on as we grow, so that I don't have to consistently, show up and do something, because that's difficult. That's difficult to schedule.
Yeah, no, you just reassured me, because I have been listening to your Moneycast podcast. Oh, I'm really excited about that. So I was worried. I know you were looking to get interviews going, so I'm happy to hear that you set up an interview as well, kind of going with this theme of you're more motivated when other people are depending on you, because I do want to see this podcast go on. And actually, Gretchen Rubin has talked about that on her podcast, Happier, how some people are more intrinsically motivated versus people who are extrinsically motivated. And I think you and I share that trait of being extrinsically motivated. Like, when people are counting on us, it's easy for us to do what we need to do, and we'll go above and beyond. But if it's just ourselves, then
this is why I don't exercise. Exactly.
You know what? That's a system I've set up in my life where I've got partners with me to go to the gym. Mm-hmm. And if someone's expecting me to be there, or I'm going to somebody's house and we're going to do a workout, it gets done. Yeah. But if it's on my own, 50-50, depending on my day.
It feels like a luxury to me when I know, like I said, Elsie's counting on me to get these things going. And the me stuff seems like a luxury.
Yes. Awesome, Jess. For that. Okay, now share with us a time in your journey when you had a wake-up call, like something hit you over the head, you had an aha moment. Take us back to that moment and share with us the steps that you took that led to your success.
It's not something that everybody would be able to do, but my mother passed away in 2005. That's what had me start my own business. And up until then, so when I graduated college, finally, I graduated 8 months pregnant with my second child. I got pregnant senior year with my daughter, and I had her and then went back to school to finish and got pregnant with my little boy. And so I graduated 23, 8 months pregnant, and he was born like maybe 2 weeks after I graduated. And so because I had 2 littles, I just hustled to get the first job that would hire me out of a communications degree. So I was like, really, you'd think you could get great jobs doing that, but it took a while to find a decent marketing job that paid, and they were all sales, which makes me sweat. But I did it anyway, but I did it for years. So let's say from 1999, when I went back to work, until 2005, I probably had, 15 different jobs, because I wasn't good. I'm not saying I wasn't good at what I was doing, but I didn't enjoy it. I was just trying to hustle. I was simply trying to make money any way that I could. And when my mother got sick, she got sick in 2004 with cancer, August, and she died 8 months later in May of 2005. I sort of felt like, if I was 30 and she was 55. And so I felt like, gosh, if I only have 25 more years to live, I can't spend it peddling other people's crap anymore. Like I just cannot. And at the time I was working for a car collection magazine. So they had started this magazine for people who collect cars and hot rods, like in classics. And it was a lot of misogynistic guys that I was working for, and my office happened to be in a nightclub where the waitresses wore bikinis. Like, none of this aligned with my own vision and stuff. Like, I hate places like that. It was like neon shooters and like, it was just dumb. I hated everything about it. And so I drove home from her funeral and quit my job because I was like, I cannot work for these D-bags anymore. And so, yeah, like she had left me not that much money, very little money. What money she did leave me, I spent on a computer and Adobe creative software, and I put myself back to design school because I had known that I'd wanted to be doing the sales materials and ads and not the selling. And so that was my first step. I took like, I don't know, 10 grand and invested in that, went back to school, and then hired a business coach because my husband was like, if you're going to have your own business, you need an ADHD coach that specializes in business because you're not going to be successful if you can't learn how to manage, and you need medication. And I was like, all right, I'll take medication. But it really made a big difference. It made a huge difference in me being able to be successful and focus. He was right. And it's really worked. But just to have her pass away and me think, here's a woman who had all these talents, but basically, she just was doing what she had to do to make money. Like, she was in a bookkeeper. I don't know if she enjoyed it. I mean, she was hilarious and she was a great writer and she was creative. And I don't know if she was using any of that her whole life. And I didn't want to turn out like that. I didn't want to be 55 and come down with something and feel like all my talents went to waste. I don't know if she felt that way. She's of a different time where like ladies just married the guy and had babies and maybe found something useful for themselves to do later. That's kind of like what she did. But I already knew I wasn't going down that road, but like, I definitely didn't want to feel like, oh my God, I'm just going to be doing sales because that's what I've done. Because that's what I've done. That's stupid.
Yeah. It's awful that it happens, but it's a blessing as well. When somebody important to us dies, it is a wake up call. It makes us like put things in perspective and really think about the reality of things. Like, why am I doing what I'm doing? Am I happy? Am I living, especially like the question of, am I living the life I want to be living? Yeah. Is this in alignment with me? And that's why as coaches and sometimes, just as friends, we try to be helpful by asking the question, if you only had this much time to live, would you be doing this? Yeah. Would this be an issue? Because the questions like that put it in perspective, and, a death of someone close to us. And you're not the first person who I've had on the podcast who's talked about how somebody who died, like, set them off in a new life. Mm-hmm. It was someone else's death that caused that, like caterpillar to butterfly moment for them. And it's huge. It's huge. So if anyone who's listening, like, ask yourself that question. Like, if say you only had a year to live, like, what would be different? What would you change? And don't wait for someone to die.
Yeah. I had another what they call come to Jesus moment 5 years prior. I was in a marriage that wasn't right. And similarly, I didn't think, oh, I don't want to live the rest of my life this way. But there was an incident that happened that made me think, who am I in this life? Like, this is not this is not who I am. I am not this person. I don't have a husband who talks to me like this. I don't live in a house this way. This is not me, period. I just, and it once again was one incident that made me finalize the thought that had been sort of boiling. But I mean, when you're in a bad marriage, you kind of just like fight or flight. Like, you take every day as like something to overcome. If you can survive that day, good. But then once in a while, something will happen and you'll just be like, oh, this is not my life. No, it is not my life. No.
Yeah. Who am I anymore?
Yeah, no. And you just say no, and that's it. And so, I mean, one was certainly a much different experience than the other, because when my mother died, that requires a lot of reflection. This was, the first time was much more like a slap in the face of just not being who you were meant to be. Period.
Yeah. Cut and dry. Yep. Mm-hmm. That's a great segue, because one thing I always ask my guests, and what I want the listeners to get, is there's no one way to lead. I think sometimes we fall into a trap of looking at someone who's a leader in life, in our lives, and we think, oh, if I want to be a leader, or if I want to be successful, I have to be like them. And it's totally not true. You can absolutely be yourself and be a great leader, because we all have different skills and strengths, and our personalities are different. So we're all, because of that we're all going to lead differently. So Jess, how would you describe your leadership style?
Reluctant.
Thank you for your honesty. Say more about that.
Oh God. And this is the same way I parent too. So it's like not a good thing, but like I always am optimistic that I was this way as a camp counselor. In fact, I always thought of myself that I would be like such a good leader, but because I'm bossy and smart. But like the truth is, like I really like it better when people collaborate and work as a team. I don't necessarily like to be the boss, and I'm uncomfortable people thinking of me as a boss or a leader. That said, once I step into that role, you can go ahead and duck because I'm going to take it very seriously. So She Podcast is a perfect example. I didn't want to impose rules. I know Elsie didn't want to impose rules. We just kind of want things to like go as they go and be as they be and let the group govern themselves. And for the most part, they did. But then occasionally someone would go, this person's doing this and it's really annoying. And they tell me because I'm the admin, or they tell Elsie, and then, or Elsie would come to me and go, what do we do about this? And I'm like, okay, I don't like that because I think it's rude and it annoys everyone else. Let's get rid of it. And so when that one thing would happen over and over, I started to feel like, okay, we need rules. We just have to have rules, darn it, because it's the only way to avoid people irritating each other. And also it does set an expectation. And that's kind of the same way that I parented, unfortunately, is that like, you go along and things, people take advantage of you. So like you let kids eat Cheetos in the family room one time and fine, it's not a big deal. But, 2 weeks later, when your couch is orange, it's a problem. And that's kind of how I lead. I sort of, unfortunately, I make I make rules based on where I see a need rather than, because I don't always see an advance to what's going to be a problem. And, and then once I've made that rule, though, you can't cross it or you're done or we're done here. Right. So I will say that once I have decided to step into that rule, I'm pretty forceful about it. And I don't care like what is being said or thought about me because that's just the way it is. What can you do?
I totally get that.
You do?
I totally get what you're saying where you're like, hey, we're all adults, common sense will rule the day. We all know how to get along with each other. Yeah. And then you realize there are people out there who are lacking a lot of common sense, yes, or they're just not in tune. They're not paying attention to the effect that they have on other people.
They're so desperate to make money that they'll just promote their BS all over town and not care if they're annoying people because someone will pick it up.
Right.
And I don't want to have anything to do with that.
And for those who are listening who are not like business owners and maybe not managing Facebook groups, you still have people that you're friends with on Facebook or who like air their dirty laundry. Mm-hmm. And you're like, why are they doing that?
No, right? I mean,
and if you could set a rule, you would.
I mean, think about it. It applies to parenting. It applies to putting together a baby shower. It applies to your job. Like it's better to take a leadership role than let things come together because details slip through the cracks and bad things happen before you have a chance to jump on them. So I would say even your question, like when I am planning an event, I take the leadership role right away because I already know what's going to fall through the cracks because it's happened to me before. So like, I don't, like for example, I already know if I'm planning something, whether or not I'm going to have beer and wine at this event, because do I want drunk idiots at this event or not? And if they don't like it, oh, well, ski. If I say no, do you know what I mean? Like it's that kind of thing. Yeah. It depends on the crowd. But there are tons of ways that you can apply your approach to leadership. And my approach is not soft, but I am reluctant to step into that. Not because of the responsibility, but just because, I feel like up until I step into it, it's a hassle, I guess. Yeah. I don't want to be hassled. Well,
yeah, no, I get that too. And Jess, I totally have to say this to you because I'm a huge believer that everyone should just embrace who they are. And the more you do, the better a leader you are and the more comfortable you are in that role because, you don't have a soft approach and that's okay because what's mingled in your approach is a really big heart and good intentions.
Yes.
Right? So that comes through. Even when you're not being soft, it's very clear that you're doing it for the good of all.
Yeah. I mean, in the sense of a Facebook group, it's very true. Like, and you can think of it as your kid. Like if someone pokes your kid one time, No. Is it a big deal? Not really. But if they're going to keep poking in that one place, it's going to cause a bruise. I don't want my Facebook groups to get bruises. So so no pokes are allowed in the first place, you know? And I mean, if you can, I guess if you can apply that to everything, it does kind of work out. But yeah, at first I was really reluctant. I guess in time maybe that's with age, I'm growing more comfortable with it, which is probably, I mean, I don't mind being a thought leader, but that's different.
Oh my gosh, we could go on and on about this subject forever.
Yeah.
But what I want to hear about now is something that you're working on currently that you're super excited about that you want to share with everybody.
I'm really excited about the Moneycast, actually, because I feel like it's a big experiment as to how people make money podcasting. It's something that people ask constantly. And it's a question I want to answer because that's what I want to do. I don't want to go back to getting a job. I'm getting to the point where I'm starting to look because just having your own business in general is very predictable. Thank you. Sorry, I had a baby brain blip there. Having your own business is very unpredictable. And so, I miss the days where I just got a paycheck every Friday. Like, it was so blissful and you didn't have to worry. And so, the Moneycast is really formed so that I can say, okay, I am getting a paycheck on a regular basis and it makes up what I would be making at, First USA doesn't even exist anymore. Chase, or I live in Wilmington, Delaware, where all the credit card companies are. So pretty much that's where I'd work if I had a job. It's because they run the place around here.
Right.
And I don't want to do that. So can I make enough money doing what I want to do so that I don't have to do that? And I'm hoping the answer is yes, by interviewing people who are doing it. Even if, like, Dave Jackson, who I just interviewed, has a day job, but he gave me amazing ideas. Like, if I can incorporate those two and then two from the next guy and two from the next guy, maybe I won't need a job.
Oh my goodness. You know what's so inspiring about what you're doing, Jess, is you didn't start this podcast because you have all the answers. You started the podcast because you wanted to ask the questions and have the conversation so that you can learn from it. Oh.
It actually makes me really self-conscious, as a matter of fact, because I'm worried that people are going to judge, like, who is she to have this podcast? I have no financial experience. I'm not that great with money. Our family has an accountant. And I probably need a job, but people who love podcasting don't want to do something else, and it's time consuming. So there's got to be a way we can get paid to do it. Yeah. I mean, it is out of sheer curiosity. I think that's a good way to start something. I might eventually become an expert on creative ways people make money, but that's simply from asking questions. And, oh gosh, I mean, I'd love to say Googling, because that's how I became an expert on design. Let's be honest. I Googled the crap out of that and then figured out how to do it when somebody had a question. How do you do business cards? Sure, no problem. I just said yes. Just say yes and figure it the heck out.
Well, I know for me, like, I feel closer to you because I know with the Moneycast, like, you and I are kind of in it together.
Yeah. Yes.
And I feel like I can reach out to you more and be like, Jess, the next time you talk to somebody, ask them this question.
Yeah. That's how I want it to feel. Yeah. Like, we're all, rooting for each other to have a living, make a living. I mean, we can't all be from NPR and WNYC, and we can't all be serial podcasts. Some of us have to hustle our tuchuses off. And how can we make it lucrative enough, Yeah. Yes. So I'm excited about that because I'm hoping that it will not just change my life, but maybe set a new precedent as to what podcasting can do for careers. I mean, not to be all land breaking or whatever, but, just for one or two people to have the same effect that it might have on me, I'm excited about. And then there's always like little things in the background that I want to start that I'm not sure I will ever have the time to do. But like my 40 job, I think I told you how many jobs. Like, I always have this idea that I'll do a podcast series called 40 and 40. And the first one would be 40 jobs in 40 years. And then I thought 40 dates in 40 years. And I could just talk about all the bad dates and boyfriends I've had because that would be just fun. And then I run out of 40s after those two. I don't know what else I've done 40 times since I've been.
Well, there are some podcasts out there and they start with the intention of only doing X number of episodes and then they're done. Yeah. And almost like a TV series that is only going to have one season. Like, that's the intention. One season, boom, done.
Yeah.
Just to tell this story. The BBC does that all the time. They have a series, but it's to tell one story and it happens over an entire year. It's like 20 episodes and then done.
I mean, the idea is that when I was done my own 40s, that I would start asking like the audience that I've built up, like, give me a story of a parenting mistake. And then I would just tell 40 parenting mistakes or I would just tell 40, I don't know, unlikely hero stories or just whatever. I could go on. I just would have to switch it a little. But anyway, I'm excited about that if it ever happens, but there's nowhere that anybody could look for it because I'm still in my head.
Okay. Awesome, Jess. Well, the lesson here for those out there listening is don't be afraid to start something because you're not the expert, and, let your creativity reign. You never know where it will end up.
And nothing is permanent. You can always change.
It's true. And people have short memories. So if you do a really bad job, people forget.
True.
Their memories are very
That's
forgiving.
True.
So
that is true.
All right, Jess, I'm going to do a quick leadership roundup. So tell us, what is one practice that helps to make you a better leader?
I think keeping in touch with the people that you're leading on a regular basis. You can't disappear. So I make sure that I keep in touch as much as I can.
Be consistent. I hear that and what you're saying. Yep. And what is one book that you would recommend to a woman to help her develop her leadership?
It's not written by a woman, but The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. It's all about upper limiting yourself and how not to do that.
Yep. It doesn't have to be by a woman.
No, I know, but it's ironic. That's all. But yeah.
And I tell people this all the time too, like some of my best mentors have been men. I do not, and I interview men on this podcast as well. I don't want to rule out the male perspective because I think they have a lot to offer women as well in terms of developing as a leader. And and you've had this interaction on your episode as well, where when the men weigh in, they have a perspective that helps to open up the conversation a little bit further.
Yeah.
Definitely. So that's
a great book, and it's an easy read. Like I read it at jury duty one morning, like the whole thing. If you have 2 hours to spend, it's great, and it really gives you an insight and perspective as to why you might be sabotaging your success.
It sounds like a great airplane book.
It's a great airplane book. Yes. Get off the plane, raring to go.
I'm going to put that in my bag for podcast movement. Yes. All right. And just knowing what you know now, if given a chance to go back and do anything differently, like if you could keep the lessons you learned, right? Because some people say that like, oh, I wouldn't change anything because, of all the lessons I learned. If you could keep the lessons that you've learned, but if you could go back and do anything differently, what would you change?
You know what? I'd probably outsource things a lot sooner. I'm very controlling. I didn't want to work with other people. I felt introverted for a little while, and I would let go of that and work harder to find a good teammate sooner because it probably made me waste a lot of time doing little piddly technical things that I didn't need to do.
I love that. And share with us a success quote or a mantra and why it has meaning for you.
One of my favorite quotes lately is, there's two actually. Lucille Ball, who said, "I'm not funny. What I am is brave." And that's huge because first of all, she is funny, but it takes so much bravery to put yourself out there and do the joke. It's hard. It's work. And whether you're being funny or whether you're being serious or knowledgeable or whatever, you have to be brave first. She's right.
Yeah, she's brilliant. I grew up watching reruns of I Love Lucy. So she's always been one of my heroes.
Me too. And then the other one is Joan Rivers, actually, who said, I'm successful by saying what everyone else is thinking. Which is, again, along the same lines of being brave. If you've seen her comedy, she's right. A lot of times she is saying that's why she got booted off the red carpet because she would sit there and stand in front of you and go, "What the heck are you wearing? You look like a peacock." And it's true, but you can't say that to whatever.
And this is definitely true about you because we were just having a conversation before we recorded about an episode on She Podcast where like you came out and said something and I was on a walk listening to it and I was like, "Oh, good for her. Yeah. Oh my God, she just said it." Yep. Yes.
It's important. It's important to me. That's why those are my success quotes because it's important to put yourself out there even if it's scary.
Yeah. And as women, sometimes it's hard to say what we're thinking. Like we censor ourselves so much.
Very much.
To the point where we water down ourselves, that, a lot of people, like we're not being true to ourselves. Now, we never want to say anything that's just plain mean. We're not talking about that, but saying like, be honest, like say it out loud. If it's right there, blurt it out.
Amen, sister.
And Jess, lastly, what is the best way for those who are listening to connect with you?
Oh, that's such a good question. Right now, I would say shepodcasts.com is probably the best way, or the moneycast.com.
And for those of you listening, even if you're not a podcaster, you will enjoy the episodes because it's not just about podcasting. It talks about a lot of different issues that are relevant to women, pop culture, mothering, family.
It's womeny. For sure.
It's womeny, and it all comes up, and it's very enjoyable, and it is a great place to connect with Jess. And you can find all of the links and resources shared in this episode at womentakingthelead.com, or you can use the short link, which is womentl.com. I will have Jess's show notes page right there in the podcast tab. She'll be easy to find. And Jess, thank you so much for taking the time to inspire and enlighten us. We are all better for having met you.
Thank you so much for having me, Jody. It's been great. I'm honored.
Thank you for joining me on Women Taking the Lead. Were you inspired to take some action today, but maybe don't know where to start? Or maybe you have so many great ideas you can't decide where to focus your attention. Don't let stress or overwhelm stop you from having the career, the business, or the life you want to live. Head over to womentakingthelead.com/coaching or use the short link womentl.com/coaching to sign up for a consultation with me. And to strengthen you on your leadership journey, I'd like to send you off with a quote from Marianne Williamson, so here goes. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. Again, thank you for joining me, and here's to your success.